Welcome, Jonah.
Well, welcome, Frank.
Thank you. And part two. Oh, I'm so glad you initiated Native Nations poets of New England especially, but now it's such a bigger picture for me. And I think 2 shows, possibly 3, will do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to need at least one more, but we'll take it easy.
Oh yeah, a little break in between. Yeah. So I love going through McDonald's for coffee in the morning because I'm practicing Spanish.
Oh, good.
Mi querido amigo, mi querida amiga. Got to change the gender, depending on who's there. And mucho frío. And it changes the face of the person when you're using their language, their culture. And it's just so wonderful. And I think of these poems, and they're really so powerful to change actually the tone, the feeling of a whole community. My interest this show is less on the personal, which is definitely screaming out of these books and collections, and more to the backdrop of the bigger culture of Native Americans, and as you brought up last time, the fact that there are 500 plus recognized, not all landed. But one of the quotes that struck me on the poets.org is on poetry and community. Boing. One of those moments. Yeah, that's where my growth has been in delving into these books, and as we spoke, you too, deeper and deeper, more sensitive. I've been asked to write about how poetry can bring a community together. I think that's exactly what this has done since Joy Harjo was announced the first Native American poet as really National Poet Laureate. Library of Congress, there was a whole project she did for the next 3 years. It's so wonderful. Community. My answer, and this is also from a poet, is framed by my own experiences as a poet and also as a collaborator, and how both have given me a sense of belonging that has transformed me in ways that feel particular and tenderly human. How wonderful that poetry has a 3rd, 4th, and 5th act. And now in community. So
I think, and the start of the community from a Native point of view, and I don't speak for Natives, but just from listening to the voices here, the sense that I get is that the community is not this land belongs to us, but we belong to this land.
Absolutely.
Which is what the whole concept turns, our responsibility back to the earth.
And that's such a cultural shift. It's just a huge paradigm shift. And, as she says further on, from the culture of community, there are some sentiments now expressed in the voices of these poets that turns that around too. We don't want archipelagos of tribal communities broken up. We want the land. That's why Joe went back to Oklahoma, from Oklahoma, rather, back to the native lands. And I think it's wrapped up into exactly what you described. We belong to the land. Land has given us so much. And it's almost like animism, but it's really deeper. It's like, what can I say?
Well, it's a celebration of life and being part of life, and
It
respect
is.
for life.
It is, and we want to be grateful for all the things that Native nations have taught us, the white culture, over the years. And along with that, who knew that David Brooks would delve into this in his second book, The Second Mountain, which is much more of a spiritual kind of epiphany, awareness of, oh, what personally do we go through when we have that awakening, but also culturally and community. He said, hyper-individualism is not a new problem. He's talking about the cultural crisis in America right now because of hyper-individual. It comes and goes. A few years ago, I was reading Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe. I came across a phenomenon that had haunted me ever since. In the 18th century America, colonial society and Native American society sat unhappily side by side. As time went by, settlers from Europe began defecting to live with the natives. No natives defected to live with the colonials. This bothered the Europeans. Wow. Context, history, true. They go back together. They assumed the superior civilization. That's the whites. And yet people were voting with their feet to live the other way. The colonials occasionally persuaded natives to come with them and taught them English, but very quickly the natives returned home.
I'm so glad you said that, because the first poet that I would like to introduce today
Naturally.
is Emily Pauline Johnson, who she was born March 10th, 1861, on the Six Nations Reserve, Canada West. She was the fourth and youngest child born to George Henry Martin Johnson, a Mohawk who was both a hereditary and elected chief. Wow. And he was fluent in 6 Indigenous nation languages and allowed him to work as a translator. But Emily's mother was an English-born Canadian. Mm. While growing up, she did not have much of a formal education. She had a governess. It's so blended. She had a governess for 2 years in her childhood. She had 3 years at a day school for Indigenous children, and 2 years later a public school. She did read a great deal of poetry, however, including works by Lord Byron, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and William Shakespeare, all Englishmen and all men. Yeah. But the poetry that she at least the poetry that I found that among what you sent me was a celebration of and a sensitivity to Native people living in Native circumstances and on the land and with the land. So I'd like to read a few.
Great.
One is called The Cornhusker.
Such an essential image, corn.
Hard by the Indian lodges, where the bush breaks in a clearing, through ill-fashioned fields, she comes to labor when the first still hush of autumn flows large and recent yields. Age in her fingers, hunger in her face, her shoulders stooped with the weight of work and years, but rich and tawny coloring of her race. She comes afield to strip the purple ears. And all her thoughts are with the days gone by, ere might's injustice banished from their lands her people, that today unheeded, lie like the dead husks that rustle through her hands.
Oh,
So she's celebrating the traditions and she's mourning the loss of the white, I'll call it invasion.
and it goes together.
And the second one is marshlands, and you talked about the image of corn. The other important crop staple comes into this poem. And Emily Pauline Johnson, her native name is Tekahayanwaki, which means double wampum. Double wampum, excuse me.
And like Tekakwitha, it's hard to say that one, and that's another Indian name.
A thin, wet sky. Oh, this is called marshlands. A thin, wet sky that yellows at the rim and meets with sun-lost lip the marsh's brim. The pools, low-lying, dank with moss and mold, glint through their mildews like large cups of gold. Among the wild rice in the still lagoon, in monotone, the lizard shrills his tune. The wild goose, homing, seeks a sheltering where rushes grow and oozing lichens cling. Late cranes with heavy wing and lazy flight sail up in silence with the nearing night. And like a spirit swathed in some soft veil, steals twilight and its shadows o'er the swale. Hushed lie the sedges and vapors creep, thick, gray, and humid, while marshes sleep.
Oh, I loved the rhyming in her two poems, and also her, as you brought up, her sensitivity to ancestors, poetry ancestors, and it's a hybrid culture too, in terms of poetry, where they have ancestors from Europe to look back to, but also their own ancestors.
Right.
Wow.
And the forms are English.
Yes.
They're couplets, they're things she learned.
Couplets, yes.
You know, in English schools. But the focus is definitely, this is the marsh. Mm-hmm. This is where we get our rice. You know, but it's not just let's clear the marshes and make little rice factories or monocultures.
Yeah.
This is the place where there's moss and the place where there's geese and lichens and the place where there's cranes, and all this works together. And it's a reverence for
reverence. I was just going to say, tip of my tongue was devotion, and there's devotion to the land and understanding spiritually. What a hybrid that is, you know?
Yeah.
The ancestry of poets.
So that's Emily Pauline Johnson.
I'm glad she popped up.
Yeah. What do you have for us?
I have, after going through a third time, and I wish I knew some native speech, all I know from my South Dakota days is Wakan Tonka, the Great Spirit. And even though I was one summer at the Sundance, 20,000 Native Americans, and 10 whites. Fantastic June celebration.
That was
the Sundance
version, huh? Great.
I went through again, and I'm going to do some excerpts, just a couple. Something that we do. She's Tiffany Midge, enrolled citizen in the Standing Rock Sioux tribes, and was raised in the Pacific Northwest. Standing Rock is South Dakota. And also a huge history of abuse. But she's delightfully playing with going antiquing. I used to do that. Did you? Occasionally.
Antiquing, I don't know.
I don't know.
I do the yard sales.
Yes, I do the dollar store.
Yeah.
It's just so much of a fun take here. First it was the tumblers for highballs, cocktail hour with primitives, so she's going from table to table in the antiquing shop, the kind your grandmother used to wear. And then I'm going to skip to about halfway through. Don't you want to be more than a metaphor? She's looking at Captain John Smith's image, figurine, Pocahontas, and ooh, there's the fellow who was the soldier. Oh boy, I don't want them sitting together. She says she moves them around. What a great spirit. That's the beauty of it. That's the trick. You think ironies are free, but they're not. What wars might emerge from such proximity? She's imagining with these figurines sitting next to each other in her imagination from the past. What skirmishes could result? I imagine the Iroquois brave brandished on the alfalfa seed cloth. Isn't that something? The image of a brave on a seed cloth. Don't mess with vintage. The collections seem too worn. If you think this is a Toy Story, you got another thing coming. I mean, it's such a beautiful light touch to something we all do and engage in occasionally, whether it's a dollar store fun look, but
Well, I think, I'm glad that you brought that up because a theme I get again and again when I read current, modern Native Nations poetry is the resentment or forbearance or, wanting to hold up the how they are stereotyped. I guess the
Exactly.
the annoyance of being stereotyped.
the annoyance of being stereotyped.
So this is a short one I'll read by Neela Northson, a Shoshone Chippewa. And there's a picture of her.
I think
She lives in Fallon, Nevada on a reservation. And it's the title is I Gotta Be Indian Tomorrow. I came back to Nevada because somebody decided they needed a Native American on the radio show. And I came to mind. I'm flattered, and my ego drove me 200 miles over snow-packed mountains. But now, before the interview reading, I'm panicked. I haven't written an Indian poem in a long time. Maybe only 1 out of 100 poems even touch my tribalness. They think just because I'm Native means anything. I write, that anything I write somehow is rooted in nativeness. But in flipping the pages of my 3-ring binder, I find nothing mentioning Mother Earth or feathers or reservations, even though I stand on Mother Earth. And my rearview mirror has an eagle feather tied to it. And after the interview, I'll be going back to the reservation to see my family. Is that Indian enough for them? I don't know. I guess it will have to be. Tomorrow I'll think deeper about being an Indian.
Oh, I picked that one out too.
Did you?
I did. I was going to enjoy
I
that
stole your
too.
Poem.
No, that fits perfectly with the segue. Oh, really? Stereotypes, how much that irritates.
Yeah.
And boy, you bingoed that one. That was wonderful.
Well,
And there's light verse. You see, the joy of the two we just read is that it's just so life-affirming because they kind of,
well, you know, sense of humor. I mean,
that's human.
Yeah.
A wonderful human trait to be able to poke a little fun at yourself, too.
That.
Yeah. Here's a nice little Hawaiian story, you know, and as I said earlier when we were talking, wow, it's not just New England, it's the whole 50, you know, and it's just so important to recognize.
Oh, it goes beyond our 50 because
Doesn't it, though?
we superimposed the 50 on a much bigger picture.
Didn't we?
You know,
the
all
originals,
the Americas,
yes. And there's a line in here in one of the poems, hey, don't focus on the northern hemisphere, you know, we're the whole thing, and this is all the way down. Wow. So, Hawaii. Nu Ravila, author of Permission to Make Digging Sounds, is a queer owl poet, educator, and aloha aina. She has performed and facilitated workshops throughout the Hawaii as well as Canada and Papua New Guinea. Speaking of native nations, my sister-in-law sent 50 packages of heads, wooden carved heads, in the 70s.
Oh.
Wow, she was a missionary. And at the United Nations, so that's it. I mean, it's the whole world, it's not just us. And she is proud to have taught poetry at Hawaiian University, place of learning. And
I like the idea of a place of yearning, though.
oh, yeah.
I don't mean to distract you.
No, that's exactly the point. We Freudian slip so often. A place of yearning. And she is definitely in it because, you know, she's not in the majority. Right. She's queer. And she has written a poem, Shapeshifters Banned, Censored, or Otherwise Shitlisted, a.k.a. Chosen Family Poem. Chosen Family means, you know, if you're gay, lesbian, transgender, LGBTQ, and beyond, you actually have the experience usually of choosing your own family after you've been rejected and thrown out from your own. And that's a really seminal moment. I loved her repetition here. The one whose mai was stolen as she slept. That must be an amulet. The one who sold everything to live as bite marks. The one named my AI. The one raising his scalp like foil from a pan of meat. The one who thinks he knows who stole the mai. The one with oo feathers instead of hair. The years it took to catch each bird and adorn her head in yellow. Some of the pictures of Hawaii and its costumes are coming up. The one swallowing a cuckoo tree for the rest of her life. The one who became the rest of her life. The one still searching for the mai. The one meant to be locked door but fell in love with the crank of keys. The one made of open until her drunk mother chased her with a knife, screaming, expurgated. She is the cure to everything that hurts, but will never let anyone touch her again. That's a very moving poem to me. And exhibits really the diversity that we've encountered and continue to encounter, which stuns me. I think that's why I had to reread this 3 times, so I was not going to miss any gems. I've got one for South Dakota, but you're on a roll.
Oh, you go ahead. I don't. You do yours from South Dakota, and if I.
This is some of the emotional, really strength that is illustrated here. And South Dakota is close to my heart. We lived there 8 years. And I finally did, in my job statewide, as higher education, a disperser of funds to colleges, we had to put out RFPs, requests for proposals. So I actually decided, finally, in the 70s, early 70s, we're going to do Indian-white race relations. And what a blowout that was. You know, from Pine Ridge, Lionel Bordeaux, the chief came, and he was part of our panel. We had all the paintings displayed in the auditorium. It was new for them.
Oh,
but I was an Easterner.
Yeah,
What did I know?
Yeah.
You know? And that's why I was hired. No baggage. No hometown baggage. Yeah.
Right.
And they had two actually Democratic senators at the time, Aberesk and McGovern. So I came in with the wash.
There you go.
We're going to take a break. After I read just the first paragraph of this.
Okay.
Resilience, one of the strengths. My mother in 7th grade ran from a Dakota boarding school back home to White Eagle in an age before interstate highways. That's before the 70s, cell phones or Google Maps. That determination and love of life is resilience. A native father sitting in Perkins, that was the coffee shop chain.
Right.
Yeah. After working a late shift with a 2-year-old toddler in a high chair, explains that the baby's mother showed up at his door with a child he didn't know existed and said, quote, "Here, I've done this for 2 years. I'm done. He's yours." He didn't hesitate to do the right thing. That is resilience. We will be back with more resilience. Oh, this poem gets to my bones. It's just so powerful.
Which one is that?
This is,
Oh, just the page.
Marcy Rendon.
Okay, what's the page?
The page is 165.
Okay.
Marcy Rendon, author of Dreaming into Being, is a white earth nation Anishinaabe author, playwright, poet, and community arts activist. She's got some chops.
And are you going to finish that, or did you want to
No, I want to break right there.
Okay, and so, good. So next, you're going to read
The rest of it.
Okay. And then go on to the Trudell, so we could talk about Trudell?
Oh, absolutely. Perfect timing.
And Trudell is 161.
3-minute break. We're so enthused and excited. We're coming back. Oh.
You matter.
You matter.
You matter.
And your words matter too.
Your words matter.
What you say in the hallways at school or in the student section at a game matters.
Words can be hurtful.
Words can be offensive.
Words can leave scars.
Words can also inspire.
Support.
And uplift.
You and your words.
Are they both important?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSCTV is your local Connecticut Midshore Valley digital connection.
Inflation isn't just hitting your pocketbook. Businesses are tacking on new fees to survive. Be wary of low advertised prices. More businesses are implementing drip pricing, where additional fees are added as you move through the buying process. Don't be afraid to take your business elsewhere. If you think the fees are too high, keep shopping around. Comparison shop with fees in mind and make a complaint. Consumer Reports found that 64% of consumers who complained about a hidden or unexpected fee successfully had it taken off their bill. Budget for fees. In most cases, hidden costs are not illegal, which means there are some hidden fees you might be obligated to pay. But watch out for cramming, the illegal act of adding unauthorized service charges without your knowledge or approval. Take a few minutes to review your statements each month and check for new or unexpected fees. If you find a hidden fee, take it up with the company. They may be willing to reduce or remove the fee in some cases. And even if they don't, you still want to know what you're paying for and how much you can expect to pay monthly. For more tips, visit bbb.org.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide. It provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
We are back as we promised, and I'm halfway through a very riveting poem for me, and she's quite the lady. As I pointed out, Marjorie Rendon, author of Dreaming into Being, is a white earth nation Anishinaabe author, playwright, poet, and community arts activist. And here are her words again. About halfway through the poem, a native artist living on the street collected discarded lipstick and eyeshadow to create gallery-worthy paintings, creating beauty out of beauty discards. That is resilience. My father, along with thousands of other fathers, Native American fathers, for more generations than we want to remember, sat alone, not changing residence, waiting for children to return. That is resilience. Reminds me of Joy Harjo going back to ancestral lands. And some stuck it out, stayed there, and their generations were identifiable. And when those who had moved away, Trail of Tears, forcibly moved away, returned, there was some kind of merging and celebration. That's a fantastic phenomenon for me, because home is everything, and land is everything in the culture. Men who went to prison, who somehow came out and started businesses, who raised families and took jobs way below their skill levels, who became sweat lodge runners, sun dancers, and pipe carriers. That is resilience. The woman who lost her child to child protection because she was caught in a cycle of addiction and street life, sent to prison, who spent 5 years getting clean, going to meetings, petitioning the court against all odds to regain custody of her child. That is resilience. I love her voice. It's a booming, strong voice. And here's the reference, an allusion to someone we know, written about her, and this is someone different from a different trial. The poet who grew up with a not-so-easy life in Oklahoma, resilience gave her words to write, now U.S. Poet Laureate. Resilience also gave her music in her heart that pours out of her saxophone, healing hearts of listeners. So when Joy Harjo took over the role, there was a hoedown in the halls of the Library of Canada.
Right.
She was playing her saxophone, and what a lady. And resilience is making decisions that benefit the whole instead of just the individual. That is so culture. It is getting up and putting one foot in front of the other, even when you don't want to. This is our resilience. Yeah, I love a poem that has a tonal quality of force and resilience.
That's beautiful.
Who is Trudell? That's what I'm wondering when I'm reading in this book.
Okay, you read the poem.
Okay.
By
what page is that?
By Alex Jacobs. It's on page 160. Alex Jacobs is a Mohawk visual artist, spoken word poet, and freelance writer. He's based in the St. Regis Mohawk territory between New York and Canada. And he lived in Santa Fe for 27 years and travels to do work in art and poetry projects. So he wrote this poem, Trudell, and you and I both had the same experience of knowing the name sounded familiar, but it was back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. So read the poem and I'll tell you what I remembered.
So we had that in common too. Yeah. Trudell, I know, I've been there, I feel it, I felt it, I've been there, I'm scared of what I saw, scared of what I felt, scared of my thoughts, scared of knowledge, scared of wisdom, scared of my ignorance, scared of my arrogance, I'm scared of my life. But I'm strong for my son, strong for my daughter. I'm strong for my mom, she's seen it all. I'm strong for my dad, worked himself to death. I'm strong for my loves, all these beautiful women who knew me better than I knew myself. I'm strong for my people who have been captured, killed, put away, tortured, brainwashed, left out to dry. Strong for my people who think I'm crazy. Strong for my people who can't see the light no more. Strong for my people who fight every day. Strong for my people who will die far away from home. Isn't repetition powerful in a poem? Strong for the sellouts, the doubters, the vanished, the banished, the incarcerated, the cancerated, wow, the polluted, the chronic, the addicted, the consumerated, the consumed. I'm strong for the traditional, the rational, the practical, the political. I'm strong for my people who have given up. I'm strong for my people who have been beaten down. I'm strong for my people who have turned their lives around. I'm strong for my people who only care about things and turn their lives into GNPs, CODs, ATMs, MIAs, MFAs. Yeah, that's the white culture. Degrees of disconnection, financial portfolios instead of dreams, visions of power replaced by coercion, corruption, and greed. As long as the money flows and the casino tables are green, as long as they think history can never be repeated, as long as they never read the signs or open their eyes or listen to elders who hear the earth cry, as long as they allow their own children to become indoctrinated by a system that is built on lies. I want to be strong again. I want to be strong again. But I'm scared for my life. But I'm strong again. Thank you, John. And I stopped in my tracks reading this. Who's John?
Who's John?
I didn't know.
Great reading, by the way. John Trudell, and the name rang a bell for me, but it was a while ago, and I thought something to do with Alcatraz, something to do with Native American activism. He was involved with and became the chairman of the American Indian movement from 1973 to 1979.
Bingo, that was
He was a Santee Dakota activist, performance artist. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska. He lived on the Santee Reservation. His life of activism began in 1969 and 70. He was part of the group that occupied Alcatraz Island, claiming that the newly abandoned government property should revert back to the Indian nations. And he became heavily involved in indigenous human rights efforts. So he was a pretty strong, powerful man.
He is Mr. Resilience.
He was Mr. Resilience. His convictions inspired I totally forget the name of the person you just read.
Yeah, and she probably read him because he goes back.
It's a man who did it, yeah. But so I'm going to read a nice short poem by John Trudell, but then I'm going to read a longer poem that shows you how he evolved over time. But
good.
Here's a poem, Dear Human.
So here's the guy.
Here's John Trudell.
Thank you, John. That's the one he's referring back to.
Dear Human, by John Trudell. You've got it all wrong. You didn't come here to master unconditional love. That is where you came from and where you'll return. You came here to learn personal love, universal love, messy love, whole love, infused with divinity. Lived through the grace of stumbling, demonstrated through the beauty of messing up. Often. You didn't come here to be perfect. You already are. You came here to be gorgeously human, flawed and fabulous, and then to rise again into remembering.
That's a beauty.
So what's remembering for John Trudell?
Yeah.
So John Trudell had, I believe it says, there's a notation of it here, but I read it somewhere else. He had 17,000 pages on him from the FBI because he was an activist and he was causing trouble, although his movement was peaceful.
But at that time, AIM,
right,
American Indian Movement, was really coming into its own with self-empowerment. When I was in South Dakota, 2 FBI agents were killed on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, down where the School of Red Cloud was featured last night on NBC Nightly News. Can you believe that?
I can believe
They're finally digging up the cellars at Red Cloud School to see which children were buried there without any recognition or accountability.
Right. Well, in 1979, when Trudell was at the height of his exposure, he was in Washington, D.C. at a protest, and meanwhile, back at his mother-in-law's reservation, his wife, his mother-in-law, and his 3 children died in a very suspicious fire. And nobody it wasn't investigated.
Wow.
The kibosh was put on the investigation. So this is the poem that he writes in response to that.
79.
And it's called But This Isn't El Salvador by John Trudell. Reading poetry from Central America after talking with my brother, suddenly remembering how they kill. Couldn't really say it straight before. They told me you were dead. I died. They told me your mother was dead. I died again. They told me the kids were dead. I died with each name. Fire, the government said. Accident. They lied. Duck Valley, my El Salvador. Our last kiss was our last goodbye. They came for you in winter's night. Winter's wind wailed in mourning. Government people searched for days, scene of crime, digging through ashes, looking for body parts and disturbing evidence. We buried you all in a large grave while a blizzard covered us in a blanket of snow. How it stormed, terrible pain in the land of the free. Someone should have noticed fewer women laughing. Someone should have noticed fewer children growing up. But this isn't El Salvador. Warm, strong-willed woman, I still have memories you gave me. Maybe if we recognized peasant eyes, maybe if we recognized plantation lies, Archbishop Romero would have nothing on you. Trying not to cry, how will I ever stop? Ever see a wounded lion trying to hide pain? Watch out, it doesn't work. But this isn't El Salvador. At times I feel every embrace we shared. At times, every tender moment still lives. Met Sandinista who touched my cheek kind of like you used to. She said to me, you are one of us. But I said, this isn't El Salvador. Gentle woman, natural mother, natural world. Sometimes people won't comprehend what happens. Who wants realities cluttered by acts of war? Have to keep a lot inside at times, not offending people with words they don't want to see pictures of. But this isn't El Salvador. Some people told me I'm strong to survive. I'm not strong. I'm not weak. No morality. No right, no wrong. One tear at a time. I fall, I rise. But this isn't El Salvador. You loved your people in the face of the American dream. Fry bread and tortillas. Some wars are the same. Who thinks Wounded Knee and Sand Creek happened only in history books? Is this not history? We live, we die, but this isn't El Salvador. The first look you gave me, your eyes spoke your heart, my heart, our heart. There was no other way. Sometimes one say, we are your brother. We understand what's been done. Someone say, but this isn't El Salvador, this is America. Yes, I know. Almost 2,000 seasons. We fall, we rise. We fall, we rise.
Wow, what a note.
It's such grief and such strength.
And agony.
Yeah.
And determination.
Yeah, and not without, incisive social commentary.
Not without. Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. This is all 70s scene. And I can believe they had 1,700 pages on him, the FBI, because that's when the crackdown was so intense. Brings a lot back for me, but most of all, the poem is brilliantly written because of the rhetorical devices.
I know.
Boing. I mean, it's like, and Brutus is an honorable man, and Brutus is an honorable man.
Right, the power of repetition.
Oh.
Yeah. And you find out at the end where that phrase came from. If somebody just saying to him, when they found out about it, said to him, but this is, it's like your initial reaction, but it's...
And the references to Romero, Bishop Romero, and, the...
Oscar Romero, yeah.
The killing of the...
He was killed during Mass.
Yeah. Oh. This is in El Salvador. but there are skeletons in the basement, literally, in Red Cloud. And it's on the news last night at 6:45, and the whole country's watching it. But it took 50 years. Brought me back so personally to, 72, 50 years ago. Oh, but the picture of the place on the news last night, Red Cloud, the little school with the church and and here are the Native American people in the town who are in a government position in tribal governance are down in the basement digging up and sifting for bones. And this is last night, and there were a few people who were interviewed as who would have guessed that NBC would devote, say, about 4 solid minutes to this thing that goes back, well, hundreds of years. Really. That's what we're talking about. So it panned to an elderly wise man, grandfather, who remembered sleeping in the dormitory at the Red Cloud School. And he said, at night, I drew the covers up because the Catholic priest would come prowling for boys in our boys' dormitory. This is on the national news last night.
I think the thing to insert here, and I don't make light of that at all.
Well, let me finish. He's saying, oh, but my grandmother, and now he's what, 90? And wizened and about wise. He said, and my grandmother's always taught me. This is the end of that segment last night. Forgive the unforgivable. That went right through me. It was like, again, it's on last night's news nationwide. What's the synchronicity of all this? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think the other thing to say is that it's good that things are moving in the direction of, and I've always moved in the direction of that people of Native nations are not victims.
Right.
They are empowering themselves.
That's the key.
And with great dignity and forgiveness, but with remembrance.
And poetry.
And poetry.
And digging in basements. And self-celebration.
Our Native Nations people are alive today and
stronger than ever.
Becoming stronger.
Oh. Can you imagine that wise old grandmother saying, after all they've been through, forgive the unforgivable. Oh.
Could I?
Oh yeah.
Another voice that I'm sure people have been familiar with, if you like to read, is Louise Erdrich.
Oh, great.
And
we know her.
She certainly deals with many issues that we've been talking about in her novels, and they're just wonderful. Look her up. All her books are amazing.
Say what that little intro does about her.
She's the author of Original Fire, Selected and New Poems. She's a poet and novelist and owner of Birch Bark Books. She is a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa in North Dakota.
An independent bookstore owner. She's made it.
Yeah.
Birch Bark Books.
Oh, she has had that for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
So, but her books deal with important issues of people, Native people, and
I'm so glad you caught her name at the end, because this is a wrap and we have to hold that for next time.
Oh, okay.
Because there'll be a 3.
There'll have to be a 3.
There has to be a 3. Oh, thank you, Gemma.
You're welcome.
This was the kind of blockbuster show I hoped for. That was,
No, I'm so glad that you brought it. I mean, we kind of got it going together.
stay tuned. It is November 17th. Happy Thanksgiving. We are celebrating forgiveness as well as gifts from all Native nations, and especially the poetry of community that brings the whole country together. And that's empowerment.
That is.
And it's powerful. Poetry. Who knew? Yeah. Oh, I'm so hyped and so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really did it justice. Thank you. That's what I felt about. How do you do this justice?
It's such a well of learning and
resilience.
About resilience.
And teaching. And the gifts of the spiritual embedded in Native cultures is just such a gift to us. You know, as the earlier said, you know, your ATMs and your back to the earth.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Like that too.
Oh, till next time. That might be in December, but it might be January.
Okay.
We'll see, you know. We'll take it by holiday. Thanks for show and tell too. This is from a wonderful, wonderful walk along the library in Clinton, where they're celebrating Native nations and Native cultures. And anybody visiting the library can just walk the walk. And this book particularly stood out because of its artwork. So it's there, it's in the library, and it's everything else too, you know. But this is delightful in terms of Native art. Yeah.
And message too, water protectors.
That's the key. Water protectors. And probably the wisdom of Native nations for the environment generally. Water protectors. And everything else. I think we're about to levitate. It's one of my fun things. There we go!